Well, you might tell from the lack of blinking lights, Zoe is not powered on today. Why is that? It is because I bought Zoe a new computer, hoping to speed her up. I bought one of these little mini computers. This has Windows 11 on it. It has 22 cores. If I can take advantage of some multi-threading, I can maybe speed up Zoe a little bit. Plus, this is a faster processor. And 22 cores, if I can write some code to take advantage of that, it should speed her up. This thing's got 4 USB ports on the front. And it's got 4 USB ports on the back. Some of them are Type-C. It's got 2 network ports and 2 HDMI ports if you wanted to hook up 2 monitors to it. And they say you can actually hook up 4 monitors to it if you use the Type-C USB ports. And it's got 2 network ports. Okay, this thing has an Intel Core Ultra 7 155H CPU in it, and over here it says it's got a CPU, and over here it says it's got 16 cores but 22 processors. And part of that is over here there's a GPU. It's an Intel Arc GPU, which is relatively new, I've heard. And it's also got an NPU, which I think is a numeric processor unit. And that is all supposed to have something to do with AI, and I hope to figure out what it is. Now this is what I like to see. CPU total, service CPU, CPU 0, 1, and check this out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So 0 to 21. I'm not used to having that many CPUs in one little box. So hopefully Zoe can take advantage of that and she can come up with her replies much faster now. Okay, you've probably already noticed my screenshots are looking a lot better now rather than me holding my phone up to the monitor. Because I got this new program, Flashback Express, and it lets you record a 2-minute piece of video off of your CPU screen directly. So I've already got my favorite programs loaded in here. I got Visual Studio, I've got SQL Server Management Studio, I've got the Arduino IDE for programming my Arduino boards. I've got a free program called Beyond Compare that is really good for comparing 2 files that one may have small changes in. You can find exactly the difference. And this one over here is a free text editor, but it is like a Superman text editors, Notepad++. It's got all kinds of superpowers, and that's free also. However, these guys would like some donations if you like their product, and I really like their product. Now, another thing I've done is I've moved all of Zoe's source code, VB source code, onto this computer, and it will all have to be recompiled under the newer version of Visual Studio. And most of those programs have something to do with I/O, and that means it's expecting to find one of the I/O boards or the Arduino boards on a COM port somewhere. And also I'll need to have the driver boards for any of the I/O boards that are not just a simple COM connection. And so I'll have to figure out the problem with each program as I go, and try to install the right drivers and sub-programs and everything that is needed for each one. There's no guarantee it's going to work. However, the most important program is the chatbot, which uses Dragon speech recognition. That program is from, I don't know, it's an old program. And there's no guarantee it's going to work on Windows 11. So I thought I would look at Windows Voice Access to see if Windows 11 is smart enough, is good enough to work like Zoe's old system worked. Alright, I have Voice Access loaded, and it's currently in sleep mode. There's a little microphone button there that's turned off. And then under here is just a notepad. So I thought I would test it out. This is a test. New line. The end. New line. The fact that this understands the words "the end" is a lot better than Dragon was doing last time I tested it. Period. New line. So I've tested Voice Access, and it does seem to be doing pretty well at recognizing my voice. And I didn't even have to train it like you have to do Dragon. So we'll just see how that goes. So I'm going to whip up a little VB test program and see what happens. So I've got Visual Studio open. I'm going to create a new project. And it magically knows that I want to do a Windows Forms app. That's my favorite. Okay, so here's my form. I have my toolbox open. Now I've found that most of the speech recognition software will put text into anything that Windows considers a text box or a text input box. So I am going to come down here and grab a text box and throw it on my form. And I want it to be a little longer, because I say more than one or two words to Zoe sometimes. And I also want under the data menu, there is a thing called a data grid view. I'm going to put one of them on there. Now it wants to know what I want to source it with. Well, I don't have any data sources right now, so I'm just going to ignore that. But I am going to make this about the same width as the text box up there. So my next point is to write some startup code. This is not an instruction on how to write a VB program. This is how I'm putting together a test. If you want to build your own chatbot, you need to learn VB or some other programming language first. I'm going to make this a little taller. And if I double click on the form, it will open up this little code sandwich that I can put my goodies in between. Now I know I'm going to use I need a module level data table in here, so I am going to create one called DT for data table. And this little code sandwich that it put out here is called the load event. for the form, which is one of the very first events that fires when the form gets loaded. That's why they call it that. And so all my initialization code goes in there. And what I want to do on my data table is add a column to the data table. That's all I need to do there. I'll get back to that in a second. So here I started the program and I changed the background color of the form to this manila color to make it look a little, it's easier to see. So this is a text box, this is a data grid view. The cursor is in the text box. Well, when I click on the sleep mode, it won't be. This is a test of the emergency broadcast system. So that shows that I can get some text from voice access and get it into my program. Now I could put an enter button in here, or I could say over, or I could somehow signal the chatbot program that I'm done speaking and that it should take that text and do something with it. But Zoe's other program that uses Dragon speech recognition, it has a feature. Well, let's just say Windows has a feature that fires an event when the text in this checkbox changes. And on Dragon crams all the text in the text box all at one time in one chunk, and it then fires the text changed event for this control. So if I want to write code to handle the text changed event, I just double click on this text box. It throws me into the code editor. It sets up another code sandwich here, and it's set up to handle the text changed event on text box 1. I didn't name that text box anything, so it came up with text box 1. And what I'd like it to do is take that text and put it in that data table. So let's write some code to do that. DT the data table. I'm going to access the rows collection. I'm going to add something to it, and I'm going to say it's the text from text box 1, so I can type in and that should put that text into the data table. Then I want to connect this data table to that data grid view. So I'm going to go back over to the designer, and I'm going to name this data grid view DGV for data grid view output. Okay, so currently it's sitting on the form. If I click the data grid view, it switches over to the data grid view 1. I'm going to change the name to output, DGV output. And a couple other things I want to do is going to turn that off. Turn that off. Auto size columns mode, I'm going to change that to fill. I'm going to change row headers visible to false. And that'll be good for now. So I'll go back to the code. I'll say DT, accept changes. I'll take DGV. So I set the data source for the, on the data grid view to the data table. So anything that's in the data table should now show up on the data grid view. Let's run it and see what happens. This is the column heading that I called the column in the data table was words. So I know that that connection is working. Up here I can type hello, and nothing happens. Oh, well, if you look, oddly enough, each letter I typed went into the grid. H, H-E, H-E-L, H-E-L-L, H-E-L-L-O. That means that the text changed event is only getting one character at a time before it fires and pushes that text onto the grid. That's not the way it works with Dragon. Dragon does it all at once. This is doing it character by character, so we need to come up with a way around that. So the way I've come around, the way to fix that is one of the tools in the toolbox under the components is a timer. And you drag that onto your form, but it shows up in this black box down here because it's not really on the form. It's kind of in module level code. Basically so that you can access it from anywhere. And if you double click on it, you get an event handler called timer tick. And I'm going to write some code in that. And what we wanted to do is put the text in the text box from voice access. If the text change event fires, instead of putting it into the grid, what we wanted to do is start a timer, and then if the text changed event does not appear again in a certain amount of time, then it considers that you are done talking, and then it puts the text in the grid. So let me write some code and see what happens there. Okay, here are a couple of code changes. I added this big display here. This is just a label with a white background and a frame on it. So you can't copy and paste into that because it's not a text box, it's only a label. This is for showing the countdown timer. text box is still here, the grid is still here. Let's look at the code changes. I added a variable up here at the top before any of the subs, so it's a module level variable. It is called trigger, and when the farm loads, the timer is enabled, the trigger is set to 5, and the rest of this code you've already seen. Now this time when the text changed event fires, it just resets the trigger back to 5. It doesn't do anything else, just resets the trigger back to 5. And the reason for that is it's going to wait till it counts down to 0 before it accepts whatever input happens to be in the text box. Now this is the code for the timer tick event. The timer tick event, if the timer is running, happens every so often in whatever time interval you have it set to. Now I have mine set to 1,000 milliseconds, which is 1 second, which is really nice to follow if you're counting something down. 1, 2, 3. You want it to be in seconds because that's what you're used to. So I created a variable called cleaned text, which is a string. Whenever this thing ticks, it's going to take the trigger and it's going to do a minus equals 1. And if you're not familiar with that, that's the same as trigger equals trigger minus 1. So basically, trigger minus equals 1 decrements this trigger. It also puts the value of the trigger into that label I showed you. It does a refresh on that label, which means it repaints it immediately. You can wait for Windows to refresh it, but it might take longer than you want. So I always, if I'm updating live, fast changing data, I always refresh whatever I'm writing it to. Now, if the trigger gets less than 1, it's going to reset itself to 5. There's a cleaned text variable here that gets set to whatever's in the text box after it gets trimmed and set to lowercase. Trimming means it removes any leading or trailing spaces. And I always do that just to be safe in case somebody's hitting on the keyboard and they accidentally hit the space bar. I've got a little note, a reminder here, don't add empty rows. So I put an if statement. If clean text is not equal to an empty string, then it's okay to add it. So then it takes the data table rows collection, it's going to add something to it, and it's going to add cleaned text. That is my text from the text box that was trimmed and set to the lowercase. Then it's going to clear the text box. That's it. That's the whole program. Let's run it and see what happens. Okay, the program is running now. You can see the timer counting down. It's not doing a whole lot because I have voice access in sleep mode. It's really hard to synchronize turning on the speech recognition and talking into the microphone, narrating a video at the same time. But anyway, I'll demonstrate this by typing in, and watch as I hit the characters, the timer will either stop or reset to 5 or 4. So I typed the word hello, timer got down to 0 and it put it in the grid. I typed the word there. So now it's put hello there in the grid. Now, actually after something gets put into the grid, Zoe goes off and does something else and starts processing and disables the input until she's done doing whatever it is she's going to do. And the reason for that is she has been known to talk to herself. She's got lithium in her batteries, so I don't know why she does that, but by having her turn off the input when she's going to do an output, it makes more sense. Now I can type more stuff in there, but it would be sadistic to watch somebody watch me type. So I'm going to try the sleep mode turned off, our voice access. We'll see what happens. This is me talking to Zoe. I will have to change the grid to put the latest version on the top. All right, I don't know what that means. What I want the grid to do is to scroll. So it might be better if it was scrolling in reverse, or it might be better if I just had it scroll up when the text gets past the bottom of the grid. Hello, Zoe. The fact that that recognizes the word Zoe is a big plus for voice access, because Dragon speech recognition used to think I was saying so we. So I've added 3 more lines of text here, I've added 3 more lines of code. The first thing is I dimension, which is creating a variable SAPI as an object, so it's creating an object variable. The second line I added was in the form load event, which is the initializer when the form first starts. SAPI equals create object SAPI SP voice. And when it comes down here to the timer tick and the cleaned text gets added to the grid, it also calls that SAPI speak, or a method called speak in the SAPI object, and passes it the clean text, and it's hopefully going to talk. Now is the time.
Now is the time.
For all good men.
For all good men.
To come to the aid of their country.
To come to the aid of their country.
So that's how you can begin a chatbot. I can talk to it, and it can talk back to me. Currently, it just repeats back everything that I say to it.
So that's how you can begin a chatbot. I can talk to it and it can talk back to me. Currently it just repeats back everything that I say to it.